This story, found in Chapter 3 of Dark Pages Unbound, Greed and Goblins, Part 1 of 2. Written by Brandon McAleavey.
Two greenhorn adventurers stumbled into my shop. Jerion's Cabinet of Curiosities. That's me, Jerion. They were hawking junk scavenged from some crumbling dungeon. They had a limp pouch of gems dulled by grime, a rusted breastplate, a tarnished dagger, and trinkets only the most unusual collectors might covet. Things rarely gather dust here, however. From clueless travelers to coin-drunk nobles, someone always buys. I gave these guys the standard bargain bin offer, of course. Among the detritus they pushed across my appraisal desk was a leather-wrapped map. They asked if I recognized it, and instantly, as it rolled out, I did. It marked the cave in the deepest reaches of the northwestern forest, near the village of my childhood. A cave long buried in whispered warnings, forgotten lore, and ancient rumor. Over time, it became just that. Rumor. See, the elders, they called it cursed, but I never bought it. Now, I believed the cave was real, but the curse... Now, see, that I thought was just folklore. The fabled treasure, though, it had to be the truth. And I wanted it more than anything all my life. See, curses never frightened me. In fact, many cursed items have passed through my hands, and rarely, if ever, have they delivered on any of the malice they were purported to harbor. If any of them were true, I'd be long dead by now. See, cursed junk sells well. Oftentimes even better than the standard goods. The cursier, the better. I've made a fortune peddling haunted spoons and hexed candlesticks. I once sold a rock which I claimed housed a water spirit that'd drain your body dry if it ever got wet. Keep it dry, I warned. The client paid me double. So, I played the curse up for the adventurers. I said the cave was dead from the very first step, guarded by wards only a seasoned mage could unravel, beasts in the dark, envious spirits that devoured the souls of the foolhardy. They laughed nervously, and with not enough coin to hire help, nor the spines to go alone, they left the map behind. The moment they walked out, I was already planning the journey. I bundled the junk together, the dagger I put into the gem bag, and everything I scooped up and put onto the breastplate, which I turned upside down to carry the lot to the storage. But the map I studied into the night. Its sigils screamed doom. Pestilence, death to the greedy and their village, the usual blah, blah, blah. I'd seen it all before, and much worse. So I spread the word. I hired a crew, not elite, just capable enough to survive, cheap enough to ensure my profit, of course. Now, I'd commissioned crews before, but I've never set out on adventurers. It's not for me. This time, though, I wasn't sitting it out. See, I dreamed of that particular treasure for too long. I geared up for my personal stash. A flashy dagger, a silken cloak, some fine but comfortable boots. Then I told my wife to run the shop on shorter hours. I kissed my kid goodbye, and I set off to meet the crew. 6 days' travel brought us all to our destination. Kyrios, an elven ranger, Dora, a stout female dwarf cleric, and twin human sellswords, Eliora, a fighter, and her brother Elgin, a warlock. We arrived at the cave at dawn. Dew collected on our leather armor as we readied ourselves for the journey ahead. Ominous it was. The cave exhaled rot and despair, thick, wet, and foul, like a beast waking from hunger. From its depths came soft groans and skittering shuffles of unseen things. We peered into its black, gaping hollow, and my companions, blessed with sharper vision than mine, could see no further than I could. The darkness there, it wasn't just deep, it was wrong. It had weight, texture even, like a thick fog. It had substance and voraciously consumed the light. My companions looked at me with some trepidation. Everyone felt a little underprepared for the challenge that seemed to lay ahead of us. Undeterred, though, I gave them the nod. After whispered cleric prayers, some elven meditations, and the twins doing whatever secretive rites only twins seem to understand, we cautiously stepped inside. It was just before noon, still early enough for us to have optimism. The cavern glowed in the torchlight and the aura of Dura's enchanted, radiant mace. That light didn't exactly comfort us, however. Things felt really off. The light cast long, twitching, unsettling shadows. Unnerving chittering drifted around us. Alien, dissonant things that nibbled at our ears from the dark. Shapes flitted just beyond the light, shifting with the dance of the flame and the curling smoke above. Tricks of shadow or death stalking just beyond our reach. Many times I thought we should turn back, but I pressed ahead. In fact, a voice pulsed beneath the surface of it all, faint but persistent. Not speech, not quite, but a constant low murmur of familiar syllables, stitched together like a patchwork of prayers, almost in reverse. We all heard it. I saw the others scratch at their ears too, glancing over their shoulders at nothing, just like I did. Footsteps slapped on stone alongside ours. Certainly not echoes. Echoes don't wheeze and giggle on their own. Curios led us, eyes sharp for traps. Worth every coin they charged for all the maimings they spared us. However, spotting snares was one thing. Recognizing an ambush waiting in the impenetrable dark was another. Curios paused, warned us of a tripwire ahead. We all clustered close, huddled in trust. We'd grown so used to the ambient scuttling in the dark that when raspy, erratic breathing and a muffled giggle neared, it was already too late. Whatever it was, it stood at the edge of our light, waiting, blending into the amorphous dark. For how long it followed us, I didn't know. It appeared suddenly, as though it coalesced from pure shadow, or squeezed through one of the many fissures that scarred the tunnel walls and ceilings. There was no way to know. A shriek of delight, wet and high-pitched, like a child, if the child were being drowned, as it laughed. It was a goblin, but it was twisted, scarred, drooling rot and glee. Its lips were gone, torn away, revealing a skeletal jaw clenched in a grotesque parody of joy. Its mouth was an eternal yawn, trembling, twitching, lipless and cracked. Between its yellow fangs, two thin glass vials clinked. Face to face with the monster, Curios reached for their steel, and the goblin bit down. The vials shattered with a sickening sloppy crunch. Glass split its gums, a noise like meat dragged through gravel. Acid frothed in its mouth, searing through flesh already mutilated. A disgusting fluid frothed in its mouth and dribbled out from between its teeth, eating away at what was left of its lower face. Its skin sloughed off in ribbons and chunks. Bone gleamed beneath melting sinew, but still it giggled. It lunged at Curios. Claws raked through leather armor and smooth skin. Curios screamed as the goblin's jagged teeth sank into their cheek, and that caustic bile spilled across their flesh, sizzling, popping, boiling. The goblin laughed as it chewed, wrapping its ruined body around Curios' head. Eliora's sword flashed in the torchlight and punched through the goblin's spine. It twitched, then went limp, but its viscera burned still. Acid dripped in long, thick strings from its ruined gut and gaping mouth, devouring anything it touched. Curios hit the ground, howling. Dura was at their side in seconds. The torchlight revealed devastation. Flesh bubbling like wax, eyes sunken and deflating, a slurry of blood and pus leaking from blisters in a soup of rotten ruin. The smell hot, metallic, corrupted. The sound like meat searing on stone. Dura moved without flinching, water first, then healing hands. Kyrios screamed louder. She pressed glowing hands to the wound, murmuring low prayers. The light spread, and Kyrios' shouts ebbed. Kyrios' fingers found their face, or what was left of it. One side puckered and raw, like meat left too long in the sun. One eye milky and unsure. The other wide, wet, and staring. Wicked laughter rippled from the dark. The distant, droning, ethereal voice pushed its way into my mind. I wanted to turn back, but this voice, at first, it was disorienting, like a constant buzz of a swarm of flies. But now, I was able to focus upon it more precisely. Its low, unnaturally bassy rumble sank a pit in my stomach and filled me with deep dread. The words prodded me onward, despite my instincts to turn back. The voice was dominating. I clapped Kyrios on the shoulder. Be grateful. Whatever we find here will pay for any beauty you've lost. But we must move. The screams have surely summoned worse. We continue, slower, quieter. Time twisted around us. Hours or minutes, impossible to say. We were adrift in blackness, lit only by dying fire and dwindling courage. We had already gone too far to turn back. The dark whispered persistently. Unfamiliar tongues muttered guttural, indecipherable prayers to forgotten gods, hymns of ruin. The terrors in the dark toyed with us. Crooked and small hands grasped at the twilight edges of our torches' glow. Eyes glinted, yellow, sickly. Rusted blades flashed. Blood-caked teeth grinned from the edges of our vision. I never should have started this adventure. As we delved deeper, a rain of horror fell upon us. Detritus pelted us from the shadows. Bones hollowed and licked clean. Rags soaked in rotted meat. Severed limbs gobbling, mostly, flayed and discarded like toys. The floor became a stew of gore. Maggots writhed beneath our boots. The stench clung to us like an oil slick on water, sour, infected, ripe with death. Our mental fortitude was tested by the oppressive dark and the haunting, discordant chants that echoed up from the obscure depths. Hidden fiends teased us on the periphery of our collective delusion that this light would keep us safe. The murmuring, dominating voice grew louder still. It wasn't behind us. It wasn't ahead. It was around. A presence in the stone or a pulse in the air. It didn't truly speak in a conventional manner. It simply compelled, beckoned. It wanted us to go deeper, and so we did. When finally we reached the chamber marked on our map, it felt less like a triumph and more like the end of one nightmare, perhaps the beginning of another. What we didn't know then was we made it here with little trouble only because we were allowed to. The archway was scarred with jagged warnings. Death, misery, curses to the greedy. We ignored them. Of course we did. I told Kyrios to go first. They'd paid in flesh. They deserved the first look. They hesitated just for a moment. I saw them scratch at their ears again. I knew they heard the voice. Then they smiled, a crooked, cold smile, a selfish smile. Then they stepped forward. The rest of us followed, all except Dura. She stared into the dark behind us, as if it were staring back. Then the cave erupted in a frenzied clamor as we passed through the threshold. Yipping, howling, flesh-slapping stone in ecstatic rhythm, the dark rejoiced. A chorus of unseen throats rose in eldritch celebration. The dominating voice that had stalked us now roared. My vision blurred, my stomach churned, my mind throbbed with resonant, awful joy. We should have run, but a second voice, one that felt more tangible, as if it were spoken by somebody nearby. It called to us. Or maybe just to me. It soothed me. It was soft, gentle, coaxing. Closer even than the frantic atonal chanting all around us, and clearer even than the oppressive, dominating voice that called from the dark, urging us deeper. This new whisper twisted our fear into gilded hunger, an insatiable lust for gold, a voice of avarice and greed. Still, the dark about rejoiced. We all stood breathless, eyes wide in awe. Before us sprawled the hoarded prize, the treasure that had drawn us like moths to the flame. Gold piled in obscene mounds. Jewels glittered like stars. Chests overflowed with coins and trinkets. The cavern blazed with reflected light, casting shimmering brilliance across every surface. It danced along the walls, revealing murals of majesty, thrones, kings, gods adorned in silks, surrounded by groveling masses. We looted like starving dogs. The twins shrieked with laughter, adorning themselves with strings of pearls, crowns of glinting, glimmering rubies. Curio stuffed sack after sack with trembling hands. I crammed gold into every pocket, every fold of my cloak, until I moved with the clinking weight of greed. The more we took, the more the murals revealed themselves. More elegance, more thrones. Ventura entered, untouched by the greed. She pointed back at the entrance of our treasure chamber, her hands empty, except for her mace. She raised a single finger, pointing. Dozens of small, withered hands gripped around the stone threshold, fingers twitching with sick anticipation, scraping claws across the floor. One by one, goblin faces peeked in, each grotesquely identical in one aspect. A yawning mouth, flesh torn back in a permanent scream, lips stripped away, eyes peeled wide or simply absent, sockets blackened by infection in the rot of endless night. Their faces were riddled with wounds, gashes deep enough to expose bone, abscesses and gangrene blooming like flowers of death. And they all giggled. They all beckoned us. Elgin took a step toward them, his mouth hanging slack, slowly widening, as if joining in their perverted jubilance. His eyes grew wide and rolled. The goblins reached to him, as if greeting old friends. Thura stopped him, whispered a prayer, and the illusion broke for all of us. The dominating voice and its persistent hiss also faded away. We all regained our senses. We all knew we should have turned back long ago. Multi-legged creatures crawled out of our loot-stuffed pockets. The coins dulled with dingy grime. Jewels cracked and caked with muck and dust. Trinkets lay under webs and swarms of insects. Treasure was strewn among fly-ridden offal and bleached bones. The treasure hoard wasn't a prize. It was an offering, a long-standing tithe paid to something ancient and cruel, something that lurked from beyond voids and watched. The walls, too, shifted. Murals peeled away their glamour to reveal horror. Flayed bodies, blood ritual, towering limbs rising from the earth, to grasp the living and drag them to enormous gaping maws, waiting to be fed. Elgin gasped as clarity returned. All around us, the goblins' malicious laughter died, replaced by a cacophony of guttural howls, deep and wrathful. A roar surged from the deep, shaking the cabin, something primeval and buried in long, undisturbed shadows. The displeasure of this waking thing from beneath 1,000 years of slumber. Not a beast, not a god, something worse. Dura said firmly, "You have what you came for. Now we leave." Before her warning could settle, the goblins raised a chatter like a crashing wave. Armor clattering, weapons clashing, shrill war calls echoing down the tunnels. Still, Dura took nothing for herself. She stood sentinel, her glowing mace raised as the rest of us steeled ourselves for the retreat. Freed from the cave's influence, I still lingered, entranced by one single chest. As I stared at it, a haze slowly overtook my sight, and a fuzziness clouded my thoughts. I wanted only one thing. That thing was worn, solid, familiar. The chest from my childhood dreams. I needed that chest. I tried to lift it, but I failed. I was too weak. My mind was fixated, and every thought was to take it. I wouldn't leave it. Desperate, I begged through her to carry it, offering more gold for her trouble. She said nothing. She simply hefted it with ease and started walking. She didn't look back. She didn't even prod us to follow her. She knew she didn't have to. The twins bolted after her, adorned in jewelry like royalty, and Curios, wiser than the rest, dropped some of their loot in favor of speed. I dawdled one final moment at the wealth left behind, and then even I fled. The goblins let Dura pass, parting like a congregation before their priest, but they closed in behind the rest of us. I could feel their breath, hot and fetid at my heels, their claws scraped at my cloak, their giggles now manic wails. From every crack they poured, feral vermin bred by centuries of darkness, their sanity long since bled into the stone. This was no cursed cave. It was a mouth, and we walked willingly into its throat. We were set to leave before it swallowed us.
Thank you for listening to Dark Pages Unbound. Story, Greed and Goblins, Part 1 of 2. Written by Brandon McAleavey. Voices by Brandon McAleavey. Sounds found on freesound.org. Story rights held by the story's author. Please contact Dark Pages Unbound for submissions or suggestions at darkpagesunbound@gmail.com.